Buenos dias. Because we're starting a new book called A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley? Aldous Huxley. We're going to start our intros differently. I was thinking maybe a different language every time. Because bonjour is why. I'm your host, Maggie now, and we're diving into a new book. And we're starting with Chapter 1. And immediately out the gate in Chapter 1, we are submersed into a world of incredible scientific achievement. And we're shown this through the tour. The director of what is called the Director of Hatchery and Conditioning of a Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center is giving to a group of children. So he's giving this tour of the facility. And just the description of the processes through processes throughout the chapter, which are incredibly complicated, especially considering that these processes are being described to children. It's talking about salary, and it's using words like viscosity or salinity, and phrases like, this receptacle was immersed in a warm bouillon containing free-swimming spermatozoa, along with those confusing words and descriptions of the processes, along with the description of the factory as having harsh, thin light glaring through windows, hungrily seeking some draped life figure, or constantly using the words cold and frozen and dead to describe everything from the lights to the workers. It really emphasizes the futuristic, utopian on the outside, but on the inside really messed up, distorted reality of this book. The achievements are astounding. But why, the question's why are they pushing this complicated process onto these children so early on? And the description of the factory really just tells the readers that it's not a fun place. And it pushes the idea that, yes, these are these scientific achievements creating human beings in a factory, which is what the factory does. It creates embryos which grow up to be human beings. And that feat is amazing. Just the ability to replicate what's going on in a woman's womb in a factory. But also is that ethical? And also, is it as great as the director and his somebody who's joining him, his employee, Dr. Henry Foster, make it out to be? They explain just how great it is that they can control the personalities and characteristics of these humans. They can condition future rocket engineers to get used to their job already by forcing them to live in constant motion, or even make chemical workers have the ability to tolerate toxic chemicals, like future chemical workers. And so this idea of preparing people for their futures, to the best that they can be, to the best of their abilities, and when they're young is super great, but also at the same time, they don't have a choice in the matter, I guess, they don't have any, way to dictate their future, but also at the same time, they still want this, when they're born, they will still want this destiny that has already been chosen for them because of how they're programmed, and also they'll be good at it. So, does it matter? But it actually, just one of the ideas that it does matter, because one of the biggest kickers here are the casts. There's multiple casts. There's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon. And due to what caste they're in, an embryo can literally be given alcohol poisoning or starved of oxygen. And this is all done, just to make sure that not everybody is a perfect human being. And just in the reality that we live in now, nobody's a perfect human being. But choosing people to have alcoholic poisoning as a fetus, or whatever it's called, alcoholic fetal syndrome, I don't know, or starving them of oxygen so they're less intelligent, is that fair? In life, obviously this happens, and people also just can't avoid genetic flaws, but is it fair to purposely develop people and immediately have them at a disadvantage? It's kind of the difference between random selection and purposeful selection based on caste. And I feel that in the future just will we're just being introduced to this process now, but in the future, I'm sure we will see the divide between these castes, and I'm sure there will be a lot of social problems that are involved with that. And yeah, so that was just the first chapter, which really brought up a whole lot of questions in my mind, and it's a little scary, but we'll see what happens. Thank you for listening to our first podcast about this book. Crazy. We're missing James Comey already. But I will see you next time.